Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Keisha Blair, wife, mother of 3, author of Holistic Wealth, and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. The show will showcase various experts in the key pillars of holistic wealth. Each week, we deliver the best information on how to become holistically wealthy and live your best life. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Tara Williams, and she's the founder of her company, Dreamland Baby. And the founding story can be described as a tragedy to triumph story, as Tara is a full-time mom of 4 kids, and she was able to bring her family from the brink of bankruptcy to financial stability while helping 50,000 plus families get a better night's sleep in 2020 and seeing $3 million in sales with Dreamland's flagship weighted sleep sack product. And Tara, she has lofty goals of tripling that number to see sales of 10 million in 2021, which is amazing. Tara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Tara, can you tell us the story of how, you started? And I mean, it must have been hard juggling 4 kids during a pandemic while your company took off. So can you tell us how it took off? And I know you were on ABC's Shark Tank. So can you tell us the story of how your company started?
Yes, absolutely. I have 4 kids, like you mentioned, and my baby was not sleeping. He was 6 months old and still waking up every hour and a half. We had bought everything, we had tried everything, and just nothing was helping him sleep through the night. So I had placed a heavy throw blanket on him and saw that he immediately calmed down, and a light bulb went off in my head that he needed a weighted blanket. I got online to look for one and found that there was nothing in a wearable fashion. How we sell them weighted blankets, but the American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend loose blankets in the crib for kids under 2. So I wanted something he could wear, like a sleep sack or a sleeping bag. And my mother-in-law sewed my first version because, I couldn't find it online, and she sews pretty well. And we got it back about 2 weeks later. And the first night wearing it, he slept for 12 hours. So it was an absolute sleep transformation for our family. And so much so that we even thought, okay, this must have been a fluke because he's never slept like this. The next night, he slept the same way. He started taking longer naps during the day. And 2.5 years later, we have a company and he's still sleeping with a bigger version of our Dreamland Baby.
That's amazing. I remember those sleepless nights. I remember us swaddling our firstborn, so tightly, with blankets so that he would sleep, and it would always help. But of course, it always got unraveled during the night. You'd have to get up, rewrap. And, that was back in the day. That was like, 15 years ago? Because my eldest is now 15. So I know this must be a tremendous gift to a lot of parents out there who are sleep deprived. And so, Tara, how did you, because I suspect you started by bootstrapping the business, right? Like, how did you, get that out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really tough. We were in a precarious financial situation at the time. My husband had been laid off from his job of 15 years the day before my son was born. And while I was on maternity leave, I was with a startup and they actually shut their doors. We didn't get our second round of funding. So all of a sudden, we had gone from 2 strong incomes to both being unemployed, 4 kids, 5 and under, and this baby who's just relentlessly crying all through the night. So we were unfortunately not in a position where we could put money toward the business. At the time, my husband was really urging me just to take any job so we could even have health insurance. But I felt so convicted that this product would help other families. And in the long term, it, would help our family financially. And it was really the right moment in time to seize the opportunity. So there was definitely some contention starting, but my parents gave me $50,000 to start the business. They, in exchange for a piece of equity in the company. And that really helped us get off the ground. And it sounds like a lot of money, but it was gone in, blink of an eye.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, as I mentioned in the introduction, so you were on the brink of bankruptcy. And so I'm wondering how that played out when you got that injection of funding of 50K. How did you structure that? How did you think about moving forward, being on the brink of financial collapse, to then getting 50,000, which was a lifeline? And how did you structure it or think about how you would allocate that fund so that you could, of course, take care of your own personal financial needs for the family and then launch that business?
Well, it was an interesting time. We had said, okay, we can buy gas and groceries, and which dire, but I mean, we did have things like our kids were in sports before, and we had gone on family vacations, or we had gone out to eat. And my husband and I made the decision that we would forgo that, because most of those extra things in life were coming from my salary. And so if I wasn't making money or generating, a profit from the business, then those things we just truly couldn't afford to do. So we definitely made internal sacrifices, and I did not pay myself for 2 years. I think a lot of people look at the business and say, oh, you were an overnight success. But what they don't know is I was watching 4 kids, right? So that is a job. I was a full-time mom managing the 4 kids and trying to do the business both at the same time. So I would never have quit my job. I just didn't feel morally or ethically right to start a new job, knowing that it really would have just been for the paycheck so I could go then do my business. So it was hard, but yes, getting the money from my parents, it all went into the business really just to begin. I think there's so many starting things that we don't think about. Our patent for the product was our provisional patent, I think was about 2,500. My first, round of samples were $100 each or $150 each. And I ordered 10 of them. So it was $1,500 right for that. And getting all the business licenses, setting up a website. I mean, the money, it just went so fast. And I kept thinking like, oh, this is going to sustain us for months and months and months. But it didn't, because we had to just buy different things and get things set up. And so, I mean, none of it went to paying myself. It was all just to kind of get the business moving. But yeah, all those initial startup costs, that's what it went toward.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so in terms of the product innovation and how that played out, can you tell us a bit about the innovation behind the weighted sleep stack? And, you mentioned the samples. And so there's the innovation and then getting the samples and getting them out. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Like I said, my mother-in-law had sewn the first one, and it took her, I want to say about 15 hours to sew. Even now that we mass produce them, they're made by hand, and each of the pockets are individually sewn, and the beads are individually placed in. It's important to do it this way so the weight is evenly distributed from the shoulder to toe. So they are extremely labor intensive, even today. So when I asked her if she would make some more so I could have some samplings, she said, no way. And actually, really, people were more asking them just if she could make one that they could buy. So as soon as it had worked so well for us, right away, friends and family started asking, can your mother-in-law make one for me? Can she make one for my sister's baby's not sleeping? I have a friend I'd love to gift this to. And so that was really my first signal that these were needed beyond just for my family, but they'd help a lot of other families. And I sought out to find a local manufacturer. She was a seamstress who does like pillowcases and curtains. So she had just a local, I wouldn't go as far to say it's a factory, but an area where a lot of people are sewing, small factory, I guess. Even finding that was so difficult. I remember I was going to Joann Fabric and asking the people that work there, is there anyone who comes in and buys a lot of fabric that that's like has a business? Or it's not an easy thing to find. I got a bunch of like a board at the back of Joann Fabric. So I drove to all the ones that were probably within an hour of my house, and I pulled down all the business cards and called all of them, and nobody thought that they could do what I was asking. And then I met with several people, and it's just really hard to make. So a lot of people didn't know how to do it there. But then I finally found the person who could make our first samples, and they were not aesthetically good, but they had the concept there. So I gave them out, and 9 out of 10 of the people that we gave them to had an absolutely incredible sleep transformation like we did first night up to, that first week, either extending sleep windows or getting their baby to fall asleep faster. So I knew that it was definitely, and I'm reiterating on this because I think that some people just think, oh, I have a great idea. Like I'm going to go mass produce it, but you really want to do like smaller batch testing even if the samples, like I remember $150 at the time, and I needed 10 because I was giving them out, not just to those 10 people. This was before COVID. So I took them back and I laundered them, and then I would give them to another 10 people. And so I was doing these like week-long, basically sleep tests with people, and people didn't even want to give them back. It was so funny. And I was like, no, you don't understand how much money these cost. Like, I need that product back. It's worth investing up front because, what if I'd given them to 10 people? It didn't work for anybody. And it was just a fluke that it helped my son, kind of thing. So it gave me the confidence to know, okay, now we can really take that next big swing of getting a full on factory and ordering like a true production run. And most of the factories require a minimum order quantity. For us, it was 1,000 units. So that, again, like we couldn't afford it. And that's why we did the Kickstarter to raise those initial funds.
Okay. So I want to hear about that because that's amazing. That's a good pivot into the Kickstarter process. And I guess after, you had those prototypes and people came back and said, yes, they didn't even want to give them back. I guess your thinking at that time was, okay, well, how do we get the funds then to get this mass marketed, right? And then you ran the Kickstarter. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's pretty sequential. So all the while I was researching the medical side. So that was happening behind the scenes. The first thing we did was pull a patent just to make sure. It was one of those products that everyone I showed it to, they were like, how does this not already exist? Like, this has to be on the market. There's no way you were the first person that thought of this. Weighted blankets are so popular for adults, children, even dogs. Like, why wouldn't they be for babies? That seems like the most obvious. Babies like to be held. They are coming out of the womb where there's a gentle weight on them. And just to everyone that I talked to, it seems so obvious. And so we had the legal side, and then we started the commercialization process and really refining the product design wise. But I had met with pulmonologists, NICU nurses, certified sleep consultants, pediatricians, and we were really making sure the medical side that there was no, any safety testing. Like, we were doing all of that simultaneously. So there was kind of like two channels that were going on, but it did all lead to doing the Kickstarter. And I had launched it in May of 2019. And that ties in a little bit with Shark Tank because I probably would have like tinkered around with this and refined it from an aesthetic standpoint further. But I connected with Shark Tank in May of 2019. I had just applied to be on the show, and then they emailed me back and asked if I could get on a call. And I was speaking with the executive producer, and he just loved our story and loved the product, and was like, okay, I'm online, and yeah, I don't see these anywhere. I don't know how, but okay, like, you're the first person that's got them. And then he was like, so what are your sales? And I said, oh, we're pre-launch. And that was when the conversation pretty much died. And he said, well, we're not really interested in pre-launch products. So let me know like what the plan is to launch, or, he was done with the conversation. And I said, wait, I'm thinking of doing a Kickstarter. Would sales from that be enough to interest the sharks in making a deal with us, the revenue from that? And he said, oh yeah. If you have something under your belt, they just need terms of that people will actually buy it. And there's a product that exists that's being sold. And I was like, okay, yeah. And he said, so, when are you going to do it? And we weren't really ready, again, from just the way it looked. Like, I wanted to make it look nicer. But I said, oh, we're going to launch it next month. Or I think I said April. So in 2 months. And he said, okay, just keep in touch. Let me know. And that was it. And so I knew that they had filmed in June and September. Like, they had followed the same schedule for a lot of years. So I had actually a friend that was on it the previous season, and she told me that. And so she said, you have to do it before the June filming. Like, you've already basically missed that. But if you don't get assigned to somebody by June or July, like, you'll miss the September filming too. And then you'd have to wait a whole nother year. And so I was like, okay, then I just need to get this Kickstarter up and, see if we can get some sales from it. So it really was twofold. It was seeing one, everybody said they loved it, they wanted it, but will they pay $79 for it? Because those were the margins we needed, because they're made by hand and we were doing such small batches to make it financially like almost a break even at the time. And so we did do the Kickstarter. And then also I didn't have money to buy that first batch of production. And I felt like doing the Kickstarter would, like, no pun intended, but give us a kickstart, because if I had just put up my website, we wouldn't have all these people flooding to it. And it became an event. And it was a way that I could get my personal network behind it. And, they could tag a friend on social media or tell a friend. And it was like, we're here, there's this 30-day window where you can buy it really discounted. And So that's how we got it started with Kickstarter.
So that's amazing. And I looked at your Kickstarter page, by the way, and the product looked great on it. It looked so well done. It looked like you took like a year to even put that Kickstarter together because it had a lovely video. Everything, the photography, everything looks clean. It looks amazing. And so I'm just wondering how you were able to pull that off in such a short time, meet your goal, and pull all of that together. Did you get help from like a marketing company or PR to do that and achieve that funding goal?
So because it was so rushed, I think from the time that I had that phone call until the time that we launched it and went live, it was about 8 weeks. And it was, I mean, just nonstop work in terms of getting the photography and the videography and like the copy. And I did partner with a marketing agency. They don't really help all that much with stuff, and they don't actually help you until you're live on the Kickstarter. So we didn't go into it with an email list, which would have been smart. We didn't really go into it we didn't really have a social media presence at that time. So we went in cold. And when you see these Kickstarters that fund $500,000 the first day, like they've spent a ton of money in advertising and marketing to build that email list. And so we didn't have any of that. So people I hadn't talked to in 15 years from high school, bought one and referred a friend to buy one and, had an extra for their daycare kind of thing. And there were so many people in my network that I never would have thought would buy, or even like if they didn't buy it, they were sharing it, they didn't have a baby or something. They were sharing it on their social media, like, hey, my friend is doing this, like, go check it out if you have a baby. And it does help that they're really discounted. So I think they were about 40% off at the time, but Kickstarter is really not a good avenue for baby products. And that's particularly because my product is time bound. So when in the Kickstarter, we had a 0 to 6 month size and a 6 to 12 month size. And so they had bought it in May, but they wouldn't get delivery until August. And a lot of Kickstarters, I mean, you are signing up that this is a dream and a hope, and it might not come to fruition. And that is part of why you get this crazy discount. You are agreeing to this gamble that, hey, this product might not even ever come out. So if you bought something like an adult weighted blanket, well, if it got pushed back from August until October, not a big deal. But if you have a 2-month-old and you buy the 0 to 6 month and instead it doesn't deliver in August, it delivers in October, well, now your baby's too big for the product. So there becomes a risk where it's like, if this doesn't deliver on time, which a lot of them don't, it's not going to work. So again, it's just not a great place for baby products. People ask me, if you were to do it over, what would you have done different? I'm like, in my circumstance, in my moment in time, I would have done everything the same. But again, it's not some hit. I had a friend who went on there and did about 200,000 in sales. It went viral. Like ours did not. So it really was people in my own network. And then we had a little bit from the actual Kickstarter community that bought some. But I got totally hosed because like we had international people buy because they're weighted. I guess I just didn't figure out how much they'd really cost to ship. And so I think I had about $14 on there, but they cost me about $40. So overall, it really was basically a break even, but it did give me those funds in advance to be able to purchase that first round of inventory that I would have. I mean, I guess I could have taken a loan or borrowed money, but it just seemed like kind of a win-win-win to hit all my avenues of like sales and get the product and then be able to show revenue for Shark Tank. So it filled everything I needed at the time.
Right. And so in terms of fulfilling that Shark Tank sales goal from the Kickstarter, what were the sales figures then that you had to hit from that Kickstarter?
Yeah, they didn't really give me a sales figure. He asked me what my goal would be, and I said 12,500. I wanted it to be a little higher than 10,000, but I also didn't want to not hit our goal. If our goal was 12,500, but we had only sold $12,000 worth, like we would have you lose it. You have to achieve the goal or you don't get anything. It's an all or nothing. So I wanted to make sure it was low enough, but I wasn't sure if that would be enough for them to say, oh yeah, this is great. Like, it's enough revenue. I think really they were just wanting to see some sales, like even if it was 5 or 10,000 or 20 or 30, just something to show like, this is a viable product that people will actually buy. So I don't know that there was necessarily like a sales number.
And then so after that, Tara, the Kickstarter is good. It works out. What happened next on the journey? I know lots of folks before even the Kickstarter launches, they'll set up a Shopify website so people can pre-order through there too. So is that what happened? Let's say you had the website and then sales just started to continue to flow in. Was that what happened?
Yes and no. So we had a landing page, and the landing page basically said, check out our Kickstarter. After the Kickstarter ended, there was a button that you could press and it would say pre-order, from our website. And it was really basically just a shell of the website. But I did not, as you can imagine, building a website takes quite a bit of time and consumer insight too, to know what people even want to see on your website. So I didn't have time to get the website up and running prior to the Kickstarter. And then through the 30 days of the Kickstarter, that was like a mass race every day to try to get PR, to, reach out to anybody who was an influencer in any capacity and ask them, hey, will you share this? We'll send you a product once it arrives. But just really, again, like it's not really the right avenue for babies. So a lot of people that I reached out to were like, oh, we're not really interested. And then most of the magazines or editorials that you would think would pick something up like this really had said, hey, let it, like, we'll talk about it, but after it funds. So like, let us know when it's over. So I was just trying every day to get stuff set up, and then still finalizing all my details with my factory and saying, okay, I think we're going to do this many. And, then I thought, there's always a chance it goes viral and you sell way more than you anticipated. So that didn't seem like it was happening, but we were really pushing with the marketing agency to get some ads out and retargeting to people who had bought from previous baby campaigns in Kickstarter. So it was a full-time job. And again, I was still watching my kids full-time. So, I was being a mom too, but that took up all my time. And so then the Kickstarter ended and we had funded and it was really exciting. I felt a little disappointed because I had hoped, oh, it's going to go viral and we're going to do 100,000 in revenue. And we didn't, but it was enough. And all the while I was actually sending these video clips to Shark Tank where I was speaking and giving like play-by-play updates. Okay, we're on day one. Like it's 5:00 and we've already done this much in sales. And I was sending them to that executive producer, and he was like, okay, stop with the video clips. But after it was over, I sent him the final and he was like, yeah, I think that's good enough. Like, let's get you matched up with an associate producer. And so that was our next step. And then just preparing for Shark Tank again was like a full-time job. I mean, it was at least 20 hours a week of work. And part of that was because we weren't completely set up as a business because we still hadn't actually sold or shipped a unit yet. And going into Shark Tank, it is like you're going into a regular VC pitch. Like they want to know all the details on how much it costs to ship and what you're making it for and all of those things. So just getting everything together, and even like things like finalizing our business license and going to our local, just local business licenses and setting up like our tax systems. I mean, there was so much we had to do. I didn't even have a bank account in the business name before the Kickstarter. So I was doing a lot of that. And then simultaneously, I was developing the website, but we actually didn't have the website live and up and running until the inventory was available. And that was beginning of September. So that's when we turned it on, the Shopify, like you said, and then we started directing traffic toward the Shopify website.
Right. And then you went on Shark Tank and got funded. And can you tell us just a bit about that experience with Lori stepping in to fund it and kind of what happened afterwards?
It was really incredible. I went in and Lori is my dream shark, but I didn't think she would invest in really an early stage company. So I went in open to thinking, okay, maybe Mr. Wonderful, because I know he had invested in Dottle and Pop, which is a pacifier, maybe Robert, because he has kids. So I went in speaking to each of the three of them, but then right away, I could tell Laurie was really interested. And so I started really directing the conversation to her. I think what is not seen or known is, you see a 10-minute clip, but I was in the tank for an hour and a half. So it's a really long conversation. And you are on the spot and you're answering questions from 5 people that are celebrities that you admire. I watched that show for 10 years. Like I am a Shark Tank super fan. So it was this crazy out of body experience. Really, I felt I was standing there and like another version of me was like, okay, answer this way, say this. So if I come off really calm, cool, and collected, it is how I felt, But, it definitely was just like, this is a crazy once in a lifetime. You're in a studio under all these lights, and truly it's like lights, camera, action, like a movie star. So it was a really fun experience. And then when Lori offered me the deal, of course, I was ecstatic, and it was just really exciting. What I did not anticipate was how long it would take for us to air. So we filmed in September of 2019, and the season started airing in January of 2020. And so I would watch each week, and they don't tell you if you're going to be on or not until 2 weeks before you air. And so I would watch every week, and I'd be like, okay, like maybe this is the week we're going to get the call. And then I remember there were some people that I had filmed with the same day I filmed that we had been, you're kind of on set all day. So we were hanging out and chatting, and a couple other founders. And remember, it was early March. I saw them on there. And then I just remember thinking we didn't get chosen to go on TV. Because even if you film and you make a deal, like they still don't show all of the episodes. So I remember I was so deflated, and I emailed them and I said, hey, I saw like some other people that were on there the same day I was filming. Will you let us know if we're not chosen? Just because every week, like I would, race to the TV and see like, oh, or am I going to be on in 2 weeks? Because they give the heads up. And they said to me something cryptic, but it was along the lines of like, don't give up the hope yet. Like we saved the best for last or something like that. And I was like, what does that mean? And so my husband and I were joking, well, maybe you're going to be on the season finale. And I was like, no way. The season finale, like that would be such an honor. And it's during COVID, and it's on a Friday night. Like that would just be such the perfect timing. And that is what ended up happening. We were on the season finale, the very last episode. And so it aired on May 15th, 9 months after I had actually initially filmed. So the whole process, and I had applied in March of 2019. So it was over almost a year and a half from the first conversation until actually being on air. So it was just such a long process, and, it was really exciting and fun, but it was definitely a little bit wearing, just waiting and waiting and waiting and not knowing.
So after Shark Tank, in terms of, business growth, I know you got into two of your favorite stores, right? I think is it Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom? So I just wanted to hear a bit of the retail strategy and how that happened.
Bloomingdale's, I believe, reached out after they saw us on Shark Tank. And so they had reached out to us and said, we saw you online. We think this product would do really well in stores for us. And, basically just, we'd love to have you. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I had emailed Nordstrom prior to being on the show, and they weren't interested, or like they wanted to see more sales, or I forget why, but it was a no. And so after we started moving forward with Bloomingdale's, I reached out again and I said, hey, you may have seen us on Shark Tank. We're in the process of getting set up at Bloomingdale's. Have things changed on your end? And they said, oh yes, they have. And right away they wanted us to come in store also. So it really was, it's like when one store wants you, then all of them start to jump on board.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to know, because I just want to, jump in just to ask for entrepreneurs listening in, who want to get their products into stores, but don't know how to, even formulate a retail strategy or how to go about even approaching these stores. Can you share a bit of advice on that? Is it that and it sounded like you were very, very proactive yourself, which is amazing, in reaching out and finding the relevant people in these stores to reach out to. But can you just share some quick tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my background helped a little bit. I was in a different industry in medical device, but a big part of my role was market development. So it's really taking products that were unknown or unheard of, even the concept of them. So these novel type products, and introducing them to the market via, surgeon champions and getting case studies from large academic hospitals, and then, trickling that down. So if we get one hospital like a Stanford on board, then that's the accolades that another hospital like a UCSF is good. And they say, okay, if Stanford's using it, we want to use it. And then that really trickles down to like the smaller, county hospitals and different things. So I really took that same strategy. I had Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's that were both really interested. And then I really just canvassed, like, where else do we want to be? And we can't be everywhere at one time because it was just me managing it. So, and I also knew from working with those two stores that we had started conversations in June, but we didn't actually get set up until it was about November. And that entire time it was a yes. And then it just started to go through like the approval process and creating the creative and copy. And there's so much that goes into it from a fulfillment perspective, EDI and connectivity and, negotiating what price you're going to give them, because it's different if you're going to drop ship or they're going to stock it in store, or are they going to consign it? Like there's so many different decisions with different groups and organizations within each of, Nordstrom has 10 different departments for one type of product. So I was talking to a whole bunch of different people, and this is pretty standard at all big box stores. So from there, we're working through those, but I also really wanted to be in Target. That was another one. And then I started just asking around friends like, hey, this Target seems like the next step. And then I wanted to be in some of the smaller ones like Motherly and Masonette. We're on those stores and they're more curated for the, discerning parent. And so I just felt like brand wise, that would really be a good fit for us. So I started reaching out to other businesses and saying, hey, I noticed you're in the store. Would you mind getting on a 10-minute call with me? I'd love to pick your brain on how you got in. And, I think if you're going to reach out to a brand that has 1 million followers, like they're probably not going to give you the time of day. But if you're reaching out to a brand who's just maybe a year or two ahead of you, then they remember where they were and where you are. And most people are more than willing to help. I mean, myself, I probably get on too many calls, but anybody who reaches out, I'm like, sure, I'll get on a call. Like especially if it's women, I love helping other entrepreneurs. So, I mean, that's always something I would say, just try to reach out to somebody that you see is doing what you want to do and isn't 10 years ahead of you, right? They're 1 or 2. And typically they'll be more than happy to help you. And then if you can't, there's something called LinkedIn, and you can just search around and try to find, you want to be in, I don't know, Target, like try to search around and find the buyer. There's a baby buyer at Target. And then, maybe it doesn't say their email, but figure out what is a Target email and just reach out. So a lot of that is really just hunting. And if you know what you're looking for, then you'll find a way to get to it. So I would say also don't, if somebody says no, like Nordstrom the first time, I mean, they were totally uninterested. It wasn't until, hey, we were on Shark Tank. Oh, and by the way, Bloomingdale's wants us. Then it was like, oh yeah, we want you too. So I think you can also give these buyers updates. Like if they say no right out the gate, then you can give an update like, oh, yeah, hey, we're in Target now, or just wanted to let you know, here's an article, we were in Motherly or Good Morning America, like, just keep it in touch. A lot of it's timing too. And you never know when that buyer is like, oh, I just got approval to bring on 2 new lines. And, they remember you had emailed them the week before. Well, you're going to be that line. If you sit back and do nothing, then, you'll be forgotten. So I think that pretty all encompassing of all the things I did.
Okay. No, that's great. Thanks for those tips. And so in my book, Holistic Wealth, I mentioned that everyone should have their own personal financial identity. And I've been asking guests who've been on the show, as you've probably heard, to take this free quiz I developed from the Personal Financial Identities Framework and to share with our audience their results and thoughts on the quiz, especially female entrepreneurs who tend to be, mostly bootstrapped and have the same hurdles. It's just great to hear the stories. And the stories have been so inspiring so far, because in sharing thoughts about, their results, these women have been sharing too about what they have been doing or how their philosophy has been integrated into their business practices, And so, Tara, I'm just wondering if you could share your results with us and some thoughts on that.
As I was taking the quiz, I think a lot of the things I answered, like, for example, you're willing to do without, and we were for a few years, and things like if you make extra money, you put it into savings. And that's absolutely true. Last year, it was the first time I did take a salary and there was some extra money. And I remember saying to my sister, oh, I want to go buy a new car. And of course, I'm thinking of this like really expensive, fancy car. And she says, what are you like? One of those people that they get money and then they're bankrupt, 6 months later. And so it kind of stuck with me because I thought, I would never have gone and got a new car, even though I need one because I have 4 kids and I have a tiny car. But, what I was thinking of was not even practical. And it is true that if I do get extra money, like I am putting that aside. So in my personal life, I was a finance major and my husband is in financial management. So we are very financially cautious. And, that year that we did not either one of us have a salary, because it took my husband a full year to get a job. In another scenario, we would have had to sell our house and move out. But because immediately we sprung to action and we said, okay, we have this full-time nanny and we're going to let her go. And we had somebody who was cleaning our house and we're like, okay, we're going to have to do that. Like any extra expense, we went through and canceled every subscription, even Netflix. Like Netflix is $10 a month, but we said like, we do not have an extra $10 a month for that luxury of Netflix right now. Like it's just not something that we feel like we can have. And so it seems really small and insignificant, but we made the decision to cancel all subscriptions. And I mean, Amazon, same thing. And the irony of all this was I've never gone back to needing Amazon Prime or to needing Netflix subscription, or I used to go to Starbucks a lot and get a $5 drink, and I don't do that anymore. And so you think that you need all these things in life. And when your back is to the wall and you truly cannot afford them, you aren't any less happy. 2020 year of pandemic, that hit my family in like 2018. It was just a really crazy year for us. But I think it made our relationship stronger. And then it also made us so much more grateful for, we do spend almost all of our money on vacations, because creating family memories to me is more important than driving in a new car. And I feel like those are the things our kids will remember. So I think for me, a minimalist describes me perfectly. And it also describes my business. My business was profitable our second month, which is actually really, really unheard of. Now, overall, our first year, we were negative, but on a P&L month to month, we have been profitable since our second month. And that's because every decision I've made in any investment in, if that's an agency, if that's a contractor, if that's an employee, if that's a, packaging decision, it all had to have, I said, it has to pay for itself and alleviate something from me. So anybody I bring on board, if I'm going to pay them $200 a month or $10,000 a month, they have to bring in that same revenue, and they have to take something off my plate that allows me to be freed up to do something else that will bring in revenue. And I think because I was a finance major rather, I can really clearly look at our P&L and know where we're overspending, where there's opportunities. I look at our cash flow every month, and I understand how that works. And so as a business owner, it's such an important piece, and something that I'm so grateful that I had that training to just be able to understand that part. I mean, my very first hire was an accountant. Before I hired any marketer, any social media person, anything, I said, I want to make sure the business is profitable, and I want to make sure we're doing everything legally, like submitting for taxes on time. And, we've now crossed Nexus in almost all the states. So, having somebody manage that for us, those were my biggest priorities. And to date, we've done okay. We've been profitable, which is exciting.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to hear. And thank you for sharing that, because this is the part that I love most in the podcast, is this part at the end where we talk about this, because I think there's so much nuggets of wisdom that can be passed on through to others from, this experience. And so would you say that your husband's probably a minimalist too?
Definitely. Yes. He always jokes and says, I could live in a tent in the backyard. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need things in life. For us, it's just as long as our family's together, that's our most important piece.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And that's such a wonderful thought to end this interview on, Tara. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's amazing. Like I had so many questions and I still have more, but I know time is running out. And so can you tell our audience where they can find you on social media and your website?
Absolutely. So we are on dreamlandbabyco.com is our website. And that's, the primary place where we sell the product. And then on Instagram and Facebook, we're Dreamland Baby Co. And we just started TikTok, which has been really fun. So you can find us on any of those channels, and we ship out of the United States, and we also ship out of Canada. So if there's any Canadian listeners, we have inexpensive, quick shipping because we have a location in Canada as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's just an amazing story.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us this week on Holistic Wealth with Keisha Blair. Make sure to visit our website, KeishaBlair.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you will never miss a show. While you're at it,
If you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Are you a member of the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If not, what are you waiting for? Go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to choose your membership plan and join. As a member, you get so many perks. Free worksheets, advice, coaching, and a member's workshop to design an intentionally designed life. You need to figure out your life purpose? Take the Build Your Life Purpose Portfolio online self-paced course. You're struggling with all your money decisions? Take the free financial identities quiz and then take the course. You recently had a breakup, job loss, or experienced the death of a loved one? Take the holistic healing course. You need an overall plan to achieve holistic wealth? We will help you figure out your holistic wealth blueprint. And of course, if you want to start making money by helping others achieve holistic wealth, become a certified holistic wealth consultant. Regardless of what career you've got, the Institute will show you how to increase your income and walk in your purpose. The sooner you join, the sooner you start to achieve a more holistically wealthy lifestyle. And you're going to want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning, best-selling Holistic Wealth 32 life lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness.